for the person, that one girl or that one woman listening right now who maybe needs this message, can you talk about Girl Get Up to
Oh,
her?
goodness. Girl Get Up is a message that is so near and dear to my heart because I recognize that as a woman, there were many moments where I'd look like I was standing tall, but on the inside, I was falling apart. I wasn't showing up with confidence. I was bearing the weight of shame, depression, worry, guilt, fear. And yet, each day is a promise that we have an opportunity to live life free, to live life with joy and intentionality. And sometimes you need someone who looks you in the eye and says, girl, I know how you got down. I know how hard it is, but you can get up too. And when I started sharing that message, I didn't know that there were so many people who needed to hear it. So for that one woman who's listening and thinking to herself, I will never get up from this. This grief is too heavy. This heartbreak too big. I don't think I will ever recover. Sometimes us getting up is just opening up our heart to the possibilities that this is not the end. Maybe it's a change. Maybe it's a detour, but it's not the end. Your breath is a promise that it's not the end. So, girl, get up.
Can you talk about your journey of getting up?
Ooh, child. How long do you want to be here? Okay. On one hand, I feel like I'm still getting up. But when I look back from where I came from, I recognize that I am a far cry inwardly from where I started. So my parents are in ministry. My father is Bishop T.D. Jakes. When it was 2001, he was on the cover of Time magazine as America's Next Billy Graham. He's just this incredible force that kind of took the world and grabbed their attention through his messages and ministry. And yet, with that level of spotlight and attention, I found myself just kind of lost in the crowd. I did not connect with God in the way that I saw my other siblings connected with God. I thought that there was something wrong with me. I thought maybe that's for them, it's not for me. And so I found that other little crew of misfits. And I think that sense of belonging allowed me to feel wanted, but wanted by damaging behaviors. And so I got pregnant as a teenager. I was 13 years old when I got pregnant. I was 14 years old when I had my son. And if I felt alienated before then, this pregnancy sealed the deal for me in my mind. You know, this was the final straw of like, you're not one of them. Take your own path, take your own journey, and just let the good people do the good things. And I think I spent about 10 years making harmful choices, toxic choices, bad relationships. You know, I waitressed at a strip club for a little while. I dropped out of college. I just experienced abuse. I made all of these painful choices and was the victim of painful choices. And when I was 23 years old, it's like a whole story about how I ended up leaving Child Protective Services. I had my son. By 10 years after that, I'd had a 2-year-old daughter. And I'm leaving Child Protective Services because I was in this bad relationship and I just hit my breaking point and I made a decision and they called the police on me. I explained to the police officer what happened and I could tell when he looked at me that he knew I was in pain. And he's like, hey, I know you're out here. You're by yourself. You don't have any family. I was living in a different state. I'm not going to let you get in trouble for this, but I do have to report it because you're a mother and they just want to make sure the kids are okay. So I'm leaving out of this Child Protective Services office, and everything I ever thought was going to happen to me was just within reach. I thought that you're going to be a bad mom, you know, you're never going to be able to recover from this pregnancy. And I see within reach the reality that like you could go to jail, like you could be in prison, you could lose your children. These are all realities based off of where you are right now. And I thought to myself, I think there were two thoughts that I could have had in that moment. And the first one is, fine, just let it all fall apart. Or two, I can do better than this. And that one thought, I can do better than this, changed my life. That was the moment where I can really say that I started getting gut because I thought anything is better than this. So what, you're a teen mom. So what, you dropped out of college. Anything is better than this. You can do better than this. And I just started making choice by choice by choice. And even now, sometimes I'm asking myself, like, how can you do better than this? And that was the moment that changed my life.
For the person listening right now who has that whisper,
Yeah.
I can do better than this, no matter what situation they're in right now. How do you, Sarah, hear that voice, and then how do you trust it?
It's difficult to trust a voice that calls you higher when you've become comfortable with the voices that reaffirm what you believe to be negative about yourself. So I think the first thing you have to really want is a hunger for that better. You see, I was making all of these bad choices and decisions and getting myself in a mess, but underneath the root of that was me. I really did want better. Like, I wanted to believe that I wouldn't be a statistic. I wanted to believe that I was still a good girl, despite the fact that I was a teen mom. I wanted better for myself. But once you have evidence that you're not better, it's just easier to lean into what the evidence is. So faith is when we decide, regardless of what I see, I am going to tap into what I believe. And there are going to be moments when what you believe doesn't look anything like what you see. But we make decisions based off of what we believe. And so that I think I can do better, that whisper, what decision would you make if you really believe that you could do better? And how can you implement that in your food choices, your financial choices, your relationship choices, little by little? Okay, maybe you're not ready to cut them off. Can we wait 5 minutes before we text them back? Can we leave them on pause for an hour? You know, those little changes, if I can do better, is how we begin to reclaim our identity, reclaim our heart and our power, and become the woman or man that we think we can be.
One thing you just said, that sometimes what you believe does not look like what you see.
No.
And that's big.
Yeah.
That's big, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't see that around me. And the
Yeah.
thoughts I'm having don't say that there's a way. And when you have faith that you can believe better for your life, to lean on what you believe, even if it's not what you see,
Yeah.
and then make one step. Just want to reshare what you just said, because that is so powerful. I don't know, imagine the one person listening right now who's just having a moment, because it's so easy. What you just said, Sarah, it's so easy for us to see proof all around us of how things aren't going to work out, or how we don't have what it takes, or how we don't belong, or how we're not what we had hoped for.
Yeah.
When you mentioned you're pregnant at 13,
Yeah.
being the daughter of one of the most famous preachers in the world, Bishop T.D. Jakes and First Lady Sarita Jakes, being 13. First of all, before this even happens, just being the child of very, very, very revered, famous, well-known parents, all eyes are on you already.
Yeah.
And then, so many of us at our core, we just want to make our parents proud, or, so many people end up people pleasing themselves out of their own truth, trying to make other people proud. How did you journey through that process of your own identity and of navigating other people's, and I'm not even saying your family in this case, but other people's potential judgment, going through the situation, making, at age 13?
The thing about being a teen mom, and like, I was a teen mom before, like, there was an MTV show where it was something that people were like maybe more used to seeing. I was a teen mom when carrying my baby through the grocery store meant people looking like, oh, you're one of those girls. Like, oh, that's so sad. She's one of those girls. And especially when you add an element of faith, then you have people like, you're going to hell, you embarrass your parents. Like, there was someone who sent a blanket for me to wrap my baby in, and they're like, your baby's going to die because you had no business getting pregnant at this age, and I want you to wrap this baby. Like, it was so painful, so isolating to think that everything they were saying about me was true. I think that that's like, it reshaped my identity. You know, whether they're like, you're a hoe, you're a slut, like all of the things that the young people say, the old people pulling their kids away from you because you're a bad girl. Nobody wants their kids around you. And I had this, evidence that made it seem like they're right about me. When I came to a space of like really reclaiming my identity, I realized that there's a scripture in Genesis that says what the enemy meant for evil, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Though it was painful at the time that it happened, there was this relief that like I no longer have to try and live up to being the good girl anymore. So I can just try and figure out who I am. I've already disappointed so many people that like I don't have anyone else to please, you know what I mean? And from that space, I was able to say, so what does pleasing God look like for you? What does pleasing yourself look like? What does wholeness look like for you? What does purpose look like for you? What brings you joy? Like I had to ask myself those questions because a lot of people no longer felt that I was worthy of having attention turned in my direction or for someone to walk me through my own pain and trauma. And so though I stumbled, I fell. It took me a minute to find my voice. When I finally did, I knew that I could stand on my own 2 feet because I'd been so isolated already that it felt like I can do this even if I have to do it on my own because I've already been prepared by what I went through in my past.
How did your parents handle this when they heard the news when you were 13?
Well, I can tell you, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and so I sympathize with them now because no one is dreaming that this is something that they'll go through. And so I think there was obvious disappointment, pain, but also a deep sense of loyalty and connection. And, we're going to get through this. And I think between grieving and clinging that we stumbled too, but found our way as parents, a parent raising a parent, And I think that I was able to turn the corner a lot sooner than some of my other siblings and being compassionate towards them because while I was keeping a list of things they could have done better, I saw my son with his little crayon and paper like, Mommy, you didn't do this. Mommy, you didn't do that. And so I think after the grieving process that we were able to find a way to really walk out this unique journey.
Did it, you mentioned people not pulling their kids away from you or sending you things in the mail, people judging. Did that come also from other people in the church?
For sure. Yeah. I think that like kissing is contagious. Pregnancy is contagious. So if I remove my daughter from the girl who's doing all of the things that are fast, that's what we called it, like you're being fast. If I move them away from you, then it'll slow my child down. So yeah, that definitely happened.
How did that impact, or did it at all, your faith and your relationship with God and your relationship with the church?
Well, it definitely, I will say this, I already had, I will say, a strained relationship with faith because I didn't have any of the signs that were like awarded in my community. So church for us, like first of all, I grew up in Black church. Okay. So when you grow up in Black church, like you need a gift or a talent. Like if you're going to be the preacher's daughter, like, do you sing? Do you play an instrument? Like, can you memorize the Bible front and back? And like, I had none of those things. Jamie, I knew rap lyrics, baby. Like, turn on Ludacris, I got you. Jay-Z, done. Like I knew rap lyrics better than I knew scripture. So I was like, the Bible thing is not for me. Like, it's just not clicking. And so when that incident, when I got pregnant and then people pulled their children away from me, to me, it just reaffirmed this otherness, this difference that I already possessed. So I did have a strained relationship with faith and even church because I just had no genuine connection point. And I wasn't interested in like really playing. So I was like, I'm not going to pretend. If I don't get it, I don't get it. And I guess it's just not for me. And it probably wasn't until I was 23 walking out of that CPS office where I was like, if God is really real, if what they say is really true, then maybe his grace will work for me no matter how bad this slate is. And that radical encounter with God's grace helped me to see that all while I thought that I wasn't connecting with God, like God was connecting with me. He'd sent people to cover me. He'd sent situations to make me feel better. I found this journal where I was talking about like, oh my gosh, I felt the presence of God when I was in my pregnancy. And I was like, God was still there with me. The shame was just so thick that I couldn't experience his presence, but he was there watching and covering all along the way.
So many things. The shame was so thick that I could not experience his presence. That you couldn't. When I want to ask you about that moment you just described, you were 23.
Yeah.
Because so many people are still waiting for that moment, or they don't know if it'll ever happen, or they don't know if they can believe it's going to happen. And a lot of people I know feel like something's missing in their life, or they feel empty, but they doubt God exists, or whatever it is. I know for me, oh my gosh, I went through like almost 2 decades of God doubt. I was raised in a church, went through almost 2 decades of doubting God exists, being around, all kinds of people when I moved to the East Coast who just thought if you have faith, you're just not that smart, is what they would basically tell me. And they believed in science, which you can see and touch and feel and prove, for which faith is not required right? And all of that. And I remember the moment when someone had said to me, well, because I was saying I'm doubting God exists, but like something was bothering me about feeling that way, almost as if I knew it wasn't true.
Yeah.
But my mind was like, oh, but, doubt, right? Doubt lives in our mind. And I remember this person said to me, well, what makes you think God can't handle your doubt? If he created the whole universe, like try telling him you're doubting him and ask him to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And at that point, and this took a few years, but anytime I'd pray for someone, at the very end of the prayer, I would say, and by the way, like literally silently to myself, I would say, and by the way, God, I'm doubting you exist. Yeah. So if you could please prove me wrong beyond a shadow of a doubt in my life, I'd be very grateful. In Jesus' name, amen. Like it was this like long process. And for you, can you share, for the person looking for like, oh, I don't have a moment. I don't feel nothing. I want to, but I don't. And they just see stuff going wrong in your life. 2 things, because you're saying when shame is so thick, right? Or you could replace shame with anything else going on in people's lives, is so thick. Sometimes it's hard to see past it or through it. But that moment when so many things were going a certain way in your life, how will you describe that moment when either your relationship changed or that moment?
Oh, goodness. I think what really made me change in that moment was just how vulnerable I was. Mm-hmm. I am not sure that we can have real encounters with God without vulnerability. I think if we come into it defensive, we come into it shameful, we come into it guilty, we come into it angry, we come into it worried, that we are desensitized. Literally, we are desensitized because we are so consumed by whatever has consumed us. And I think to have the vulnerability to say, you know what? I'm going to release this. I don't even know for sure that I'm grabbing onto faith, but I know I can't hold on to this anymore. This doubt, this pain, this grief, I got to let it go. And to ask God in that if skeptical, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief kind of way, let your presence fall into my hands in such a way that is so undeniable that it changes me. I would say that someone who's even watching this right now and feeling that way, that maybe you're not necessarily asking God to help me believe or to help me have faith, but to help me see what this moment really is. That you would hijack a show, that you would allow this show to fall into my phone, to fall into my television show at a time where I'm questioning and wondering, and to think to yourself, what kind of God would be this intentional to let these random women from these different paths of life come together to have a conversation that would meet me right in this space that I needed the most? But if we have to be on the defense all of the time, we're not always sensitive enough to see the moments where God interrupts our regularly scheduled program to say, I see you. I can help you. I want to be in whatever you're in with you. And I have a plan that can help you.
So many people fear that their past or that the shame they're still carrying somehow prevents their goals or dreams from being possible. And you are proof that that is not true. That does not have to be true. Can you talk about your journey through shame and also through learning to believe you're worthy?
Okay, yes, for sure. I believed all of those things, that the fear and the shame and all of those things would keep me from experiencing worth. But you know what I think really helped me is coming to a space where I did not want what my life could look like. I wanted who I could become. I was so obsessed with how I wanted to change my life from the outside looking in. I want to get married. I want a white picket fence. I want to get the degree because I think it's going to look better on the outside. That I never took the time to consider, who do you want to be? Like, what do you want to feel? What do you want to bring you peace? How do you define peace? And I think because our culture is so obsessed with superficial things that make you worthy, that we never do the work to really see from the inside out what is going to bring me to a space of worth. And when that shifted, that I think I can do better than this wasn't like, I think I can have a better car or I think I could have a bigger house. That I think I can do better than this was, I think I can be a better person than this. I think I can control my anger better than this. I think that I can be a better parent than this. And so what am I going to have to remove from my life to make sure that I never end up in this situation again? This relationship that I was in at the time was so toxic that anger was my core emotion. And I didn't want to be an angry woman. So I had to remove that relationship in order to lean closer into the woman who was a space of peace and trust for my children. And so we have to think more about who we want to be, what we want to feel, what we want other people to feel when they experience us, and not so much what we want our life to look like. And how can I make a choice today that leads me closer to becoming the kind of person that other people feel safe with, that lights up a room when I walk into it? Who will I have to be? What will I have to say? And to begin to do that level of discovery so that it can change us.
And you mentioned, the toxic relationship that you're in. How did you find the strength to end that relationship? Because a lot of people are still in that relationship, and it may be the romantic partner, it might be their circle of friends, it could be any number of things. But how did you find the strength?
I think it was accumulated. I think when you're on the outside looking in, you're the friend of someone who's in a toxic relationship. You're like, what don't they get? What don't they get? And I'll never forget my amazing husband now. We were having a conversation with someone who was going through a tough season, and she was in a bad relationship. And he was like, Sarah, come on, do your thing. Like, you've been here. What would you say? And I said, I think she should leave, but I think she knows that. It's not that the person doesn't know that they should leave. It's that, in my opinion and in my work with other women, is that they question whether or not they can leave and still reclaim the time that they have poured into a relationship that is only showing signs of potential but not real fruit. We invest ourselves into relationships. So when you're asking someone to walk away, you're not just asking them to walk away from a person, you're asking them to walk away from a dream they have for this person, a dream they have about what their life could be. And it takes a long time to grieve that dream. And sometimes you're in the relationship grieving, but you will know when it's time to go, when you are no longer obsessed with what could be and you're more concerned about what is. When you can really see this for what it is, the way that it hurts you, the way that it hurts them, the way that you are prohibiting them from experiencing growth. Because Sometimes we need a person to be a villain before we leave, but we don't see them as a villain, so we can't leave. Sometimes we just need to see that we're both victims. And right now, two victims can't bring one another to a place of healing. And one of us has to take ownership of how we can heal ourselves, even if I can't be your conduit of healing. And so I don't need you to be evil for me to seek righteousness. You know, that doesn't have anything to do with the journey that I'm going to take.
Whew. When you say anger was your default emotion in that relationship, was that as a result of the relationship? Like, meaning, you know, there's this idea of emotional residue, right? Like, you know, when we eat Cheetos and then all of a sudden our fingers are orange and we have, that's like visible, or our tongue is blue from like a blue Slurpee. That's like visible residue, but emotional residue, you know, when you walk in a room and then you leave and you're like, I just got to shake it off. or you're around someone and you're like, feels like joy, tastes like freedom. Like, people, you can feel emotional residue from other people. And I think when you say anger was your default, was that, do you think, a result of the toxicity of the relationship you were in?
I think I was angry for most of my childhood, but I wasn't allowed to feel anger. You know, I try to gentle parent my children, but my parents didn't try and gentle parent me.
Yeah.
My parents, like, I came from a culture in which, like, your parents tell you how to feel. Like, you better not be angry. Like, I know you're not sad over there. And so it teaches you.
Better be grateful.
You better be grateful. I know you didn't slam the door. And so I think that, especially as my parents' ministry transitioned, I felt like we didn't have as much access to them. They were busy. I didn't fit in at church. And so I had all of this anger that I could not express. And in this relationship, I had anger, but I could express it. And so, you know, it was fun. Don't call anyone on me. I'm okay now. But it was fun to have this space where, like, you could feel angry and release it. But I just got tired of being angry all of the time. And so I don't think that it was just the relationship that made me angry. But I do think that it was an outlet for the first time that I experienced where my anger could come out in rage. It could come out in language. It could come out in whatever form it needed to come out in. And it didn't have to stay trapped in my body. And so being able to release it was therapeutic until I realized that I need to feel other things besides anger. And I can't allow this anger to continue to control my life. And so I've done a lot of inner work and therapy and healing to make room for other expressions of emotion besides anger or suppression.